Fear is an intensely unpleasant emotion in response to perceiving or recognizing a danger or threat. Fear causes physiological changes that may produce behavioral reactions, such as mounting an aggressive response or fleeing the threat. Fear in human beings occur in anticipation or expectation of a future threat perceived as a risk to oneself. The fear response arises from the perception of danger, leading to confrontation with or escape from avoiding the threat, also known as the fight or flight response, which in extreme cases of fear, horror, and terror can be a freeze response. In humans and other animals, fear is modulated by the process of cognition and learning. Thus, fear is judged as rational and appropriate, or irrational and inappropriate. An irrational fear is called a phobia. Fear is closely related to the emotion anxiety, which occurs as the result of often future threats that are perceived to be uncontrollable or unavoidable. The fear response serves survival by engendering appropriate behavioral responses, so it has been preserved throughout evolution. Sociological and organizational research also suggests that individuals' fears are not solely dependent on their nature, but are also shaped by their social relations and culture, which guide their understanding of when and how much fear to feel. There are other methods for treating or coping with one's fear, such as writing down rational thoughts regarding fears. Journal entries are a healthy method of expressing one's fears without compromising safety or causing uncertainty. Another suggestion is a fear ladder. To create a fear ladder, one must write down all of their fears and score them on a scale of 1 to 10. Next, the person addresses their phobia, starting with the lowest number. The fear of the end of life and its existence is, in other words, the fear of death. Historically, attempts were made to reduce this fear by performing rituals which have helped collect the cultural ideas that we now have in the present. These rituals also helped preserve the cultural ideas. The results and methods of human existence had been changing at the same time that social formation was changing. When people are faced with their own thoughts of death, they either accept that they are dying or will die because they have lived a full life, or they will experience fear. A theory was developed in response to this, which is called the terror management theory. The theory states that a person's cultural worldviews, religion, values, etc., will mitigate the terror associated with the fear of death through avoidance. To help manage their terror, they find solace in their death-denying beliefs, such as their religion. Another way people cope with their death-related fears is pushing any thoughts of death into the future, or by avoiding these thoughts altogether through distractions. Although there are methods for one coping with the terror associated with their fear of death, not everyone suffers from these same uncertainties. People who believe they have lived life to the fullest typically do not fear death. But unfortunately, they have not met the bear nor the bull. Death anxiety is multidimensional. It covers fears related to one's own death, the death of others, fear of the unknown after death, fear of the bull, and fear of the dying process, which includes fear of a slow death and a painful death. Fear may be politically and culturally manipulated to persuade centuries of ideas, which would otherwise be widely rejected, or dissuade citizens from ideas, which would otherwise be widely supported. In contexts of disasters, nation-states manage the fear not only to provide their citizens with an explanation about the event or blaming some bulls, but also to adjust their previous beliefs. Fear can alter how a person thinks or reacts to situations because fear has the power to inhibit one's rational way of thinking. As a result, people who do not experience fear are able to use fear as a tool to manipulate others. People who are experiencing fear seek preservation through safety and can be manipulated by a person who is there to provide that safety that is being sought after. When we're afraid, a manipulator can talk us out of the truth we see right in front of us. Words become more real than reality. By this, a manipulator is able to use our fear to manipulate us out the truth, and instead make us believe and trust in their truth. Politicians are notorious for using fear to manipulate the people into supporting their policies. Fear is found and reflected in mythology and folklore, as well as in works of fiction such as novels and films. Works of dystopian and post-apocalyptic fiction convey the fears and anxieties of societies. The fear of the world's end is about as old as civilization itself. Scientific and critical thought, supplanting religious and mythical thought, as well as a public emancipation, may be the cause of eschatology becoming replaced by more realistic scenarios. Such might constructively provoke discussion and steps to be taken to prevent depicted catastrophes. The story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was is a German fairy tale dealing with the topic of not knowing fear. Many stories also include characters who fear the antagonist of the plot. One important characteristic of historical and mythical heroes across cultures is to be fearless in the face of big and often lethal enemies. In this life, nothing is for certain and nothing lasts forever, but fear. Fear will forever linger.